My wheat field was the pride of the place. 50 acres of gold that rolled like a living ocean in late summer. It paid the bills, fed the cattle, and in August the whole valley smelled like bread and sunlight. I treated it like family. Careful rotations, soil tests, irrigation timers, the works. You don't babysit that kind of crop and then let someone treat it like a racetrack. So when the tire tracks started showing up through the stalks, right down the center where the combine would later pass, I was pissed. At first it was a kid on a dirt bike, some thoughtless teenagers cutting across to get to the river. I could handle that. New signs, a stern talk with the sheriff, a locked gate on the field road. But then it became deliberate. Every single morning for 3 weeks I'd go out with my coffee, and there'd be fresh gouges in the wheat. Planted rows ruined, irrigation drip lines snapped, and footpaths where nothing but standing grain should be. My trail cams finally caught the culprit. Karen, driving a landscaping ATV and laughing as she steered straight down my rows like she owned the place. She'd climb out, take selfies, and post them on the HOA group with captions like, "Rural charm," and "Opening access for residents." I called her. She waved me off. I filed police reports. I served her notices. I took pictures, I logged hours of footage, and I sent certified letters demanding restitution. She ignored every single one and posted a passive-aggressive community gardening notice on my mailbox. On day 22, I arrived at dawn to inspect the new damage. Deep ruts, a swath of snap stalks maybe 20 feet wide. My heart sank. That was my season, my yield. That was money gone and months of hard work ruined. I drove out to the edge of the field and met her there, center of the mess, clipboard like a coronation crown. "You can't be riding through here, Karen. You're ruining the crop." I told her, voice low, because anger doesn't solve much until you back it up with paperwork. She smiled like it was a joke. "It's just a path, neighbor. We all use it to access the creek. Don't be dramatic." I offered mediation. I offered to mark an easement if they paid to fix the damage. I offered to meet with the HOA board and draw a proper pathway that didn't cost me half the harvest. She refused every option. "No thanks," she said. "We'll keep using it." That afternoon, I called my lawyer and my insurance agent, and then I went home and walked past the holding pen where I keep my prize bull, Brutus. He's a monster of a beast, brown as earth, horns like old crescents. A heritage line we've had for generations. People respect him because he has a temper you don't test, and because he's big enough to change the course of anything that gets in his way. I'm not reckless. I don't set animals loose on people. That's cruel and illegal and not how I run this place. But there's such a thing as deterrent, and Brutus was good at it. He was also my last line of defense when paperwork and polite requests failed. I waited the next morning until I saw tracks coming up the service road. There were 3 SUVs, packed with HOA teenagers and a couple of board members playing at being pioneers. Karen was there, hair perfect, brand new boots bright as a billboard. They eased onto my field road like they had a right. I unlocked the gate and walked out slowly, hands visible. The SUVs stopped. Karen laughed. "What? You gonna do something, rancher?" I didn't answer. I gave a whistle, the one I use for feeding time. Brutus's head came up from the shade. He eyed the vehicles, pawed the dirt once, and let out a low snort that sounded like distant thunder. The kind of sound that makes a city dog think twice before barking. The SUVs were close enough to spook a sprinter. Brutus took 2 steps, then 3. He moved not with blind fury, but with the measured, enormous gait of a creature that knows its own size and is ready to defend what's his. He stopped 40 yards from the nearest tire, turned his broad head, and fixed Karen with a look that could stop a bullet. The board members in the lead truck stumbled backward. The kids started shrieking. Karen, who'd been practicing commands in her head, scrabbled for her phone to record the spectacle. I raised a hand and said, loudly so everyone could hear, "Back off my field, now, or I'll call the sheriff and press charges for criminal damage and trespass." Brutus edged forward another step and scraped his hoof. Tires crunched in reply as 2 of the vehicles tried to back out. One of the SUVs got stuck in fresh loose dirt, and the driver, fumbling in panic, revved the engine until smoke curled from the wheel well. Karen leapt out and stomped toward the gate, fury in every line of her face. She shouted something about harassment and animal abuse, and she rattled off a threat-packed sentence about calling the police. I said calmly, "You already have. I filed a report and I have footage. This is trespass and crop destruction. You can go to the county and explain to the commissioner why your HOA wants to pay for my harvest." 3 deputies arrived within 20 minutes because the neighbors had been calling in. Not just Karen, but others who heard the commotion. They watched the footage I had on my phone, the cameras on the fence, the timestamps, Karen's ATV tearing rows, and then they watched Brutus stand like a sentinel protecting his ground. The deputies took statements. They cited 3 of the HOA drivers for trespass and criminal mischief. The county ordered them to pay for the crop repairs and to reimburse my equipment rental costs. Brutus? He went back to the shade and chewed his cud like a king who'd done his duty. Karen screamed about cruelty to animals and called the press. The press came, lenses bright, and asked pointed questions while the deputies handed over copies of the trespass reports and the footage of Karen in the field. Her smile curdled as neighbors who had once nodded politely at HOA meetings now sidestepped her on the road. She didn't end up in jail, not for that. But she did get to spend the next month explaining herself at county hearings and small claims court, while the HOA treasury was bled dry covering the bills she'd racked up. Their community leadership fund paid for my harvester to come in, for a contractor to relay irrigation, and for the lawyers to draw up a permanent easement plan that excluded their subdivision entirely. When the dust settled and the wheat ripened again, harvesters came through clean and the yield was repaired. My field looked whole. I stood on the ridge and watched the machines hum, Brutus grazing nearby as if nothing had happened. Sometimes protection isn't violent. Sometimes it's a presence, a big, dangerous presence, that reminds people of the line they shouldn't cross. Karen learned hers the hard way. The field is mine, the harvest is sacred, and you don't treat someone's livelihood like a shortcut.